Feel free. All right. So thank you all so much for joining us today for our tech panel focused around AI. If you have questions as we're going, feel free to pop those into the chat box, and we can cover those as much with whatever time we have left. If there are any slides shared, you'll get those at the end, so don't feel like you need to take vigorous notes. We're also going to send out a list of some tools that are mentioned today, and then some that the panel has determined they really like. And if you have any AI tools that you want to share, feel free to post those in the chat as well, and I'll add that to the list that ultimately will go out to everyone. So our panel is going to do a quick introduction, share a little bit about how they're using AI right now, and then we will jump right into our questions. So Brandie, you're unmuted. Do you want to lead us off?
Sure. So for those that don't know me, I'm Brandie Shaw, soon to be Brandie Kaiser of Rochester IT and Business Solutions. We call it Rock IT. And glad to be here today to talk about AI, because in what we do, which is IT support and cybersecurity consulting, AI is pretty much transforming the space. So lots to say on AI.
Awesome. Thank you. David, do you want to give a quick introduction and how you're using AI?
Sure. I'm David Finger, computer gardener, a solopreneur. I help individuals and small businesses out of technology jams of all kind. Using AI, I primarily use AI for experimentation, learning how prompt engineering works, or generating graphics for PowerPoint presentations. Those are probably the most amount of time that I spend with it, but I do an awful lot of attending online webinars and things about AI just to be more exposed to it, but using it is experimental and graphics.
Great, thank you. And Kristi, our final panel member today, feel free to introduce yourself and how you use AI.
Sure. Good to see everybody. I'm Kristi Mitchell. I'm a marketing strategist and consultant. I work with solo business owners who are DIYing their own marketing efforts, as well as small to mid-sized companies who don't have a senior level marketing person on hand, and they really need that strategic advice and guidance on how to build a strategic marketing plan. My experience with AI is from that lens of being a marketer and teaching other business owners how to market their businesses. And to be honest, I was super hesitant about using AI because I believe very strongly in authenticity. And I worried that using AI for marketing efforts specifically would really hurt authenticity in terms of marketing content that you create. I kind of dabbled in using Canva AI originally just as kind of a brainstorm tool, and then evolved to this year now using a tool called Cast Magic, which takes my audio and video content and turns that into written content for me in my voice, using my information, not going out and scraping the entire internet. And so now I believe very strongly in, teaching people how to use AI from a marketing standpoint to work smarter, not harder on creating marketing content, especially as a solo business owner. That can be super challenging. And so being able to teach other business owners how they can use tools like that without compromising their messaging and their authenticity. So thanks for having me.
Yay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are going to do a couple of polls and just to gain some insight to how everyone is feeling. So what is your familiarity with AI as of today? Oh, wait, did it do? Yeah, okay, it launched. Awesome. Okay, so some are unfamiliar, some are familiar and have used it a little bit. We have some experts, some people. So we're a little all over the map, which is awesome. So very cool. And then let's see. All right. And then when it comes to AI, what is your biggest concern or your challenge related to AI? All right. So I'm glad to see that don't see a need for it is 0%. That is very good news. Privacy and security will definitely answer some questions around that. Unsure of where to start, or you're having some trouble creating prompts, we'll definitely be able to help with that. And then whoever said share something else, feel free to pop that into the chat if you want to. So excellent. Okay, let's jump right in. So let's talk about what is AI and how does it work, maybe as it's explained to like a 5-year-old. So we'll compare kind of generative versus predictive versus systems. David, do you want to lead us off with responding to that question?
Indeed, I do. Hopefully you can see a gray screen right now. So I took this really from a 5-year-old versus a 5th grader. I really couldn't decide. I deal really well with 5-year-olds. I have a couple of grandsons that are just a little bit younger than that, but I can't explain much to them. So I gave up on that and I went for 5th grade on this. So what is AI and how does AI actually learn? So as a broad definition, AI is computers and machines doing things that traditionally have been believed to require human intelligence to complete those tasks. How does it learn though? Well, the underlying root technology is it is statistics. It's probability. So AI learns by calculating probability within the data that it's given. And whether it's proximity or number of occurrences or whatever. So AI learns by calculating the proximity, and it's similar, but it's also different to how humans learn. So let's take a look at the comparison on those. With computer learning, lots and lots of data is needed. And it's algorithmic. For those of you who aren't familiar with that term, it means there's rules set up. If this, then that. What the machines do, the computers do, is they calculate probabilities based on statistics, and they identify patterns if that is what they're programmed to do. And then they use those developed patterns and statistics and algorithms to look at future data. So it starts with data, and then you give it data and it outputs data. And it's very important that from my perspective to understand that computer learning is explicit, not implicit. You are telling the computer what you want. You're giving it data. And if you don't give it data, it isn't learning on that. Whereas humans, they tend to deal with small data sets, very small data sets. I mean, a book is a large data set for a human to consume, but it's built into us, right? We don't have to be programmed to learn. It's innate to what we do as human beings. And we also put intuition into it. We take other experiences and bring them in. We also are aware of context, and that context can sometimes be simply tonality or the size of the print on a printed page or a graphic that goes along with printed words. So we take into context all kinds of things and who it is we're speaking with or hearing from and what they look like. It's very experience and emotion driven, and it's both implicit and explicit. We make implications about learning that beyond the data that's being presented to us. So those are the differences as I see it between them. There's a bunch of flavors of AI. I'm not going to cover them all, but just some that you may have heard of. Machine learning. This is really where the root of most of the AI that we use these days comes down to. You feed it lots of data with common elements, or at least elements you think are common, and then let it derive the patterns, and then you create models from that for comparisons with other data, whether it's a bunch of pictures of cats, and you feed it a new picture of a cat, it's able to use a comparison on the data that from the patterns derive. In expert systems, we've all used these. Every single time you have a automatic call routing from, like you call the bank and it asks you a bunch of prompts and you have to do ones. It's a step-by-step decision-making process, but this is still AI. It is still artificial. It is still what you consider to be, intelligence is required to make these decisions. Robotics is huge. Robotics is hidden from us on a day-to-day basis, but you've got machines performing physical tasks, but they're not just doing pre-programmed stuff. They're also making decisions based on the input that they receive, whether it's a command or an environment or whatever. Pattern recognition is amazing concept of AI. It is beyond human capability. is what computers can do when it comes to recognizing patterns. If you give it a bunch of data, you may think that's disparate data, but it will find patterns within it. But the flavor du jour, the one we're probably going to spend all of our time talking about, is the generative AI and things like ChatGPT, Bard, DALL-E 2, and so forth. The user in these environments provides a prompt, whether that is text, and it may be paragraphs or pages or volumes of text or just a few words, maybe a description of something, maybe an image. They provide an image to the AI. And what the AI does, using its patterns and statistics that it has got built up from its training, it generates a response. That response is statistically and probability satisfying to the input. All it's trying to do is put words together or graphics together or answers together that statistically match the words or graphics or prompt that it's being given. It's trained on vast amounts of data. I mean, vast amounts of data. It's not just the data, but it's also the refinement of the data that it's trained on. So there's human beings involved who write programs to help guide the learning of the program. Human and computers both contribute to this. And it's a simulated comprehension. So if you give a prompt to an AI, like write me a poem about butterflies on Wednesdays, it will do the best it can at putting together words that match that, but there's no comprehension whatsoever going on. I mean, none. Let me see if I can hide this here. There we go. There's no actual comprehension. I think this is a big misconception people have about this. So generative AI lacks emotion as a data set. It isn't able to be fed emotion. Emotion does not exist in a computer's mind. It also lacks context, as I mentioned earlier. I'm not trying to denigrate AI. I'm trying to, like, this is a computer. This is something that is inanimate when it comes to actual cognitive thinking. The output quality is improving in leaps and bounds, though, because they're taking more and more and more data. Initially, it was just Wikipedia, and now they're scraping all kinds of data from all kinds of places, and quite honestly, from places that wouldn't allow it if they knew about it. This is one of my favorite points about it. Facts, truth, logic, well, maybe logic, but human logic, none of that is inherently included. In other words, you have to include facts, or you have to include some truth, or you have to include things in your prompt in order to have it take advantage of that. It can make stuff up out of whole cloth. But systems are really, they're diversifying rapidly because they're finding new ways to train the computers on data. So hopefully that's a 5th grade level. It makes it up. It doesn't know what you're talking about. It sounds like a conversation. It sounds like a human, and it's none of the above. It is simply probability putting words together to give you something back, or graphics together.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. That's really helpful. And I appreciate you taking it to a 5th grade level, because to a 5-year-old who can't really conceptualize time at that point, probably a better way to frame it. Awesome. Does anyone else on the panel want to share or fill in anything else that they want to share? Otherwise, we can move right along. Go ahead. Sorry. Brandie, go ahead. Did you?
Oh, no.
You're good. Okay. Very good. Yeah. And I appreciate you reminding us that it is a computer, because I know when I use ChatGPT, I say please and thank you a lot, and I feel bad if I don't. And I feel really demanding when I'm just telling it to do things. So, all right. Our next question is, how can I learn more about becoming proficient with using AI? Kristi, do you want to lead us off for this one?
Sure. I'm definitely curious to hear what the other panelists have to say on this question too. You know, for me personally, right, when I kind of shared at the beginning, my kind of like dipping my own toe in the water, I first learned about the fact that Canva had an AI component to it through a mastermind group that I was in. People were talking about how they were using it to help brainstorm titles and descriptions for events they were hosting, that sort of thing. And so for me, it was more about like hearing what other people I know and respect are using and what they're gaining out of it. So just, you know, finding those communities and those places, right? And I think that this event is an awesome place for people to start if they're at that point of like, I'm not really sure what to use it for, or how I could use it, or what tools to explore. I still to this day haven't used ChatGPT. I don't know, it's a little intimidating to me, and I haven't had a need for it. So I think that just asking those questions and in whatever groups you kind of hang out in and learning, I think a big piece of it too is what problem do you have that AI might solve for you? So for me, it's this notion that I'm a solo business owner. I'm creating lots of my own marketing content for my own business and being able to save some time and energy and repurpose content that I already have. That's the need that I identified that AI could help fill for me. And then finding that right tool that felt good to me, that felt like, okay, it's only using my information. It's not going out and scraping the entire internet. I am also a huge proponent of using YouTube and Google searches, right? So if you're like, how can I use the AI to increase my productivity or manage tasks or do my marketing or whatever it might be, just going out and doing some research and then vetting that again with people that who might already be using the tool and get some insight on what tools are good and which ones aren't. Another thing that I would say is if you haven't heard of g2.com, that's a really good platform for vetting tools. I'll be honest, I haven't looked at AI tools in there, but any software tool you can research on g2.com for free and compare different similar products. And so maybe if you identify one AI tool that you're like, I might want to use this, but I'm not sure if it's the best or if there's other ones, you could always use a tool like that to kind of do additional research.
I'm a big fan of G2. When I'm solutioning for clients, it's where I start actually. I loved your comments, and I actually dipped my toe in the water a little bit with AI as well recently. So I'm an adjunct professor at a local college, and it's amazing to me how smart some of my students have become and what good writers. So I had this bad perception, I would say, of ChatGPT and similars. However, recently I was introducing a couple of products for my business, as well as we are introducing a podcast, and I wanted a cute name for it. So, and I was dry. I had no ideas. So I popped it into a couple of AI generators, and to David's point, they're just kind of pulling things together without any intellect behind it. So some of them were weird and they made no sense. However, they also were thought-provoking for me, and I ended up taking a little bit of that and putting a little bit of me into it and coming up with what I think is really a cute name and kind of what I wanted, which was Small Bites Tech Talk. As I said, some of the suggestions were wackadoo and some of them were already taken, but I think it saved me hours of churning on it myself. But it's this point of that story, I think, is that like any other tool, it's something that is a good starting off point, but we shouldn't overly rely on it ourselves. Like, you still want it to be you. So kind of, use it sparingly, I would say. And don't write research papers with it and turn them in my class.
Have you had to confront someone specifically you knew that they used something like that to do it?
I haven't. The school has. And interestingly, the school is now developing a written policy on this because this is very nascent technology. I think many businesses and, educational organizations and such are having to play a little catch up with their policies because it's not technically plagiarism if a computer wrote it for you. It is cheating, but it is not plagiarism. And so, like in my class, I told the students, feel free to use it as a starting off point, but then make it your own. Like if you want suggestions on research materials, you want help making your outline, these are all perfectly acceptable uses for it. It's spitting out your entire paper is not acceptable. So understanding where the ethics line is actually something I think will unfold in many forms over the next few years.
Awesome. Thank you. And actually, something I meant to mention at the start of the meeting, I used ChatGPT to create we used ChatGPT, Christina and I, to create the marketing information for this course or for this session. So we put in some of the questions that might be asked or answered during the time here. And that's what is posted in the event registration. So just FYI, we thought we would use AI for our own AI thing. So lots of different things that you can use that for in your business. Okay, so next question. So I know privacy and security is something that is really important to a lot of people on the call. What is AI dangerous? How and why? What should we be alert to? So Brandie, I'll let you lead us off with this one.
Yes, please. So I was thinking of this analogy. So when it comes to security, cybersecurity particularly, AI is a weapon. And unfortunately, good guys and bad guys have this weapon currently, and it's definitely a battlefield. So on my side of it, we white hatters use AI to monitor. All my clients' systems are monitored for antivirus and anti-ransomware, for one thing, for behaviors on their computer, that the AI will actually learn how somebody typically uses their computer, not what they're writing, but like when they're using it, where they're using it from, what they're visiting, and is learning that behavior in a general sense. And then if something starts to occur that's out of the norm, it will flag that maybe the computer's been hacked or stolen. So I do sleep sometimes at night, but my AI tools don't. So it's hugely powerful for that. However, we live in a world where anybody with a credit card and the right router can now buy ransomware as a service with their credit card. And so again, the battle is ensuing. And then sometimes even good AI can go bad. Like recently, everybody heard of the the other day when the internet broke. Well, that was actually, I don't want to shame the company, you can look it up, but that company actually overly relied on AI to craft updates, and they didn't test them. They didn't beta test them before they released them. And so their clients, who were big internet providers, had this pushed out and there was an error in it. So it wasn't even malicious, but it broke the world's internet. So we have, again, I guess my theme overall is that AI is a tool. It can't replace us yet. We have to still make good decisions and use good testing protocols and etc. And I'm going to be Debbie Downer on this call. That cybersecurity, I tend to fill that bill. But one of the biggest risks, according to Avast, which is a great freemium AI antivirus software, by the way. But one of the biggest risks is that even the white hat systems can be hacked by the black hats. So that happened recently with Proofpoint. It had a known vulnerability. Users were warned about it. Those users who didn't address it prior to a release that remediated it actually did have their clients' systems hacked. So it's not a one and done, set it and forget it situation at all. So I guess those are my thoughts. AI good, AI bad, depends on perspective.
Thank you, Brandie. That I appreciate that. That's really good to know. I know so many scams, so many things out there, and I guess I'm glad to hear that it wasn't an intern being fired for making a bad update at that company for that shutdown recently.
Oh, I wouldn't be sure. I'm sure there were more than a few heads that rolled, because
yes,
for sure. You don't release anything without testing it in this sandbox. Like,
nope.
So I feel like somebody's probably flipping burgers now.
Yeah. All right. So this is everyone has kind of touched on this, but what can I use AI for in my business and personal life? Does anyone want to fill in maybe more of beyond what they've already shared?
Oh,
So one other thing, oh,
sorry, go ahead. No.
I was just gonna actually build on something that Brandie was talking about in terms of it's not a replacement, it's a tool. Because especially, right, I'm the marketer in the room. So like on the panel. And so everything I'm looking at AI is from a marketer's perspective. And so I'm thinking in terms of, right, like I hear people say like, oh, well, I could just, copywriters are kind of become obsolete because I could just use Chat GPT to write all my content now. And that's really not the case. Some people will do that. I already see it, right? Especially on LinkedIn. I live there and people use it to write their posts, to write comments on other people's posts. They use it to send DMs. It's not a good look because most people can see right through it. And so thinking in terms of, okay, some people's professions, right? If you're a copywriter, ChatGPT and these other tools aren't going to replace what you do, because what you do has that human element. Going back to the points that Dave made at the beginning, it's thinking in terms of, as a copywriter or as a marketing strategist or whatever field you're in, how can you embrace the changes that are coming in your industry with these new AI tools that are available? How can you take those and use them? I think it's finding that happy medium is important in terms of not just saying like, it doesn't matter, I'm not going to pay attention to it, and not saying like, oh, this is going to solve all my problems and I'm just going to use this to write all my content now. It's that middle of the road, because it does need the human element in order to be most effective.
I'm a big fan of Grammarly because I should never proofread my own work. So anytime, even like when you're sending emails through Outlook, for example, and it's flagging or auto-correcting for you, that is AI being used. So I'm a big proponent of that. As I referenced before, there nowadays, even for you at home, there are antivirus, anti-ransomware tools that are free or very inexpensive, like Avast. I have no connection to them. This isn't an advertisement for them. It is the one we recommend to people who are just looking for something inexpensive to keep them a little safer. So you could use it that way. And then I have an interesting thing to share from Cisco, which is a world-renowned cybersecurity company. And they just released in May, I think it was, leading technology and workforce development companies released comprehensive report analyzing AI's impact on top tech jobs, outlining immediate training opportunities. So essentially what this report found was that AI is going to transform a lot of jobs, and not just in the tech space, though certainly that is huge for us, but 90%, 92% of the jobs it analyzed are going to undergo moderate to high transformation due to AI. And some of the jobs that you may not have thought of, and this, Kristi, this kind of falls into your court, but AI is going to transform the way marketing analytics is done, as well as other kinds of traditional like data management, your databases, your accounting software, all of these things that you might use for your small or medium-sized business are going to be embracing AI. The accounting software I use tells me now what my different transactions were, because it's learned, oh, when this comes in from Google, that's for your phone. And it just marks it for me. So it's going to be everywhere in all kinds of big and little ways.
And I actually wanted to go back a little bit to what Brandie was talking about earlier, as far as any kind of concerns or threats. One of my biggest concerns is, and I highlighted it in the description of what AI actually is it overdependence on it is a real danger to me. Now, I know I'm not talking about writing school papers, and I'm not talking about taking programming jobs, although taking programming jobs be kind of stupid to use the code that they write because it's so bad. But let's take, I mean, for example, for those of you who watched the Olympics recently, Paris actually changed the laws about surveillance. The laws were changed to allow surveillance to be done on individuals using individual devices. And then they used AI to make predictive calls on who they should pay attention to. And I find that to be horrific because it can't currently write me a paper that doesn't lie about something, because it doesn't know facts, it doesn't know truth, it isn't objective, it hasn't gotten any kind of contextual knowledge. And using systems like that, I think, is well beyond what we're talking about as far as ChatGPT and other kinds of generative AI, but it is still AI. And I think the bigger dangers to me lie outside of impacting people's jobs and impacting people's lives. I think is where I'm most concerned about that side of it, is that it's the darling, right? I mean, what was the darling 8 years ago? Self-driving cars. Do you see them out there? No, and you probably won't in your lifetime see fleets of self-driving cars driving along with humans. Why? Because humans are dumb, and we will do things that self-driving cars can't handle. If you got rid of us all humans, cars would be awesome. They'd be all self-driving. But I think that I'm most concerned, and from a standpoint of harm, is too much dependence on an AI system on things that affect individuals. So that's just my 2 cents. As far as the question about learning, I took a couple courses on Coursera. Coursera courses tend to be really long. I don't want to go to college again, but they are really well done. Some of them that are on AI and all things, not just prompt engineering, but also, generative underneath how to build your own AI, are fascinating. And so that's where I would go. That's where I go to find new stuff to play around with.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I have a good friend who's very, a year and a half ago when ChatGPT was first released, he was like, you have to start using this. You have to start learning how to do prompts, things like that. And today he works for a nationwide company where they have to do a lot of, for their employee reviews, it's a very cumbersome process, like 3 to 4 hours putting this together per employee for hundreds of thousands of employees across the country. And he's created a GPT for ChatGPT that is almost perfect. And you can input all of the information for your employees, and within seconds, it can generate this report that previously took 3 to 4 hours per person and now can take probably less than an hour per person to put everything together. So hundreds of thousands of hours of time savings, especially over the course of years, if this gets implemented at his company. So there are really amazing things that it can do to streamline our time. Yeah, seems pretty limitless, all the things that we can eventually be able to do with AI.
And another thing to remember with AI and the machine learning component of it is that it does, the results improve as the system matures. So the reason GPT has been free up until now is because they're trying to teach it. So they want as much use as possible so it can get smarter. So that is one thing definitely to keep in mind as we learn about some of these uses. It won't always be free. Similarly, and kind of a story with a little bit of an ick factor to it, is when they were teaching AI facial recognition. Sadly, it was mostly white faces that were being fed into it. And then they eventually learned that they needed much bigger data sets if it was going to be accurate. And there's still, actually, from what I understand, this is a little bit tangential to what I do, but my understanding is there's still lots more area for improvement on that, which is why I think we need to be mindful of how governments and institutions decide to use AI. Very like the Paris example literally gave me goosebumps. I'm not on board for that kind of thing, but we need to be aware of that too.
I appreciate you saying that. And it actually makes me think of, the things that go around on Facebook, like who starts these challenges of, oh, the 10-year then and now, like you're literally giving data if you participate in these to like what you look like then and what you look like now, so that it can learn what, how the face changes over time. And so, even the quizzes of like, what was your first concert? What's your social, like you might as well ask what their social security number is, because it's, some of these questions are common answers to, password questions or security questions. So,
exactly.
Not so much of an AI tangent, but like, think about what you're putting on the internet.
Yes, please. Thank you for that little message. As a cybersecurity person, I'm always really touting that. Like, if you pick your cat's name as your password, you might as well have 1, 2, 3, 4, because everything that you have on Facebook, your mother's, if you're linked to your mother and your mother has her maiden name and married name, then the world knows your mother's maiden name. So don't do these things. Please don't do these things.
Yes. Actually, my same friend who has been my like AI resource for 1.5 years, he mentioned that something he does for passwords is he'll mix up the answers. So instead of mother's maiden name, he'll choose like his grandpa's aunt's cousin's third wife twice removed or something. And that is always his same answer for that question. So instead of, he'll mix it up so that it's not so traceable. So all these little things that we can do to be a little more secure. I think, did I ask our final one? Any tips and tricks to use or leverage AI effectively? Anyone on the panel want to run with that?
Yes, take a prompt engineering course, just a lightweight one. Just learn about that side, because I think people are using generative AI like Google, and that's not what you want. You want to do a conversation like you would have with a friend. So write something up and then feed it to it, and see what your AI friend says back, because if you're looking to search, it's not as good a tool for that side. So I would highly recommend anybody who's interested, just grab, you're going to get bombarded with emails afterwards, right? Because you're signing up for something for free, and you know that free means you're the product. But the insight you can gain from a prompt engineering type course is really eye-opening, in my opinion.
Thank you, David. And anyone, if you don't have access to LinkedIn Learning, I don't know if there's a LinkedIn Learning course, but through the New York Public Library, if you're a New York State resident, you can get a free library card through them. It takes 2 seconds on their website, and then you get access to the full LinkedIn Learning library through the New York Public Library. So fun fact, if anyone is interested in that for AI courses and beyond.
Something I would add too, just to kind of keep in your mind, and I thought of this, Amanda, when you said that, your friend was like, you have to do this. I think especially in the world of marketing, right? Things are changing, and technology in general, things are changing all the time. And it can be very tempting to be like, oh, there's this new thing, I have to go be on it, and I have to explore it, and I always, especially when it comes to something like social media, just because a new platform comes out does not mean you should get shiny object syndrome and just like go pour all this time and energy into learning that thing. And I would say that applies to AI tools too. I don't think you should turn a blind eye and say, I'm not going to do it, right? Because the reality is it's here and it's not going to go away. But I think, again, it's about balance. So knowing what's available that could be helpful to you, but not feeling pressure to like, go do the thing just because everybody else is doing it, I think is important too. And again, going back to something I said earlier, what is a problem that you have that AI could help, rather than just feeling like, oh my God, I need to do something. Everyone's talking about AI. What should I do? Think in terms of how it could help make your life or your business a little bit better.
And if I could flip the script a little onto what not to do. So AI, as I said, is everywhere, and it is an important tool. So for sure, we'll see more and more uses for it. But I think you still need to have some awareness. It is the dark alley, so you're going to want to keep your eyes open. And for example, things like Alexa and others are like just so cool, and they're great tools, but they are also a vulnerability even in your house. So if you're going to use something like that, you want to make sure that your Wi-Fi is secured, that you have changed the passwords from the default, and just use some cyber hygiene when you're using any of these tools, because they can be compromised. So I would say use them diligently and thoughtfully.
And if I could climb back out of my doom and gloom thing with Paris, I'm really sorry about that, guys. I don't mean to do that. But one use that I found extremely helpful, if anybody has recorded audio or a video with voice and you need to get a transcript on it, I dislike the idea of feeding it up into the cloud and letting something take care of it. There is a tool that uses OpenAI's Whisper technology, and it does it on your computer. It actually will do a transcription from audio or video, does it on your computer, so you're never putting your video or your audio file up into the web. And I'll put it in the chat. That tool is called, I'm looking for it now, it's on my desktop here somewhere, but so is 6 billion other things. It's not Descript, it's Buzz. Buzz, I'll put it in the chat. Buzz is a great tool, and it is using OpenAI Whisper AI. So it's using AI, but it's on your machine to transcribe things. And a quick proofread while you're listening, you can actually listen to it and look at and read it as you go through. Just to proofread it, it's really pretty accurate, and it's secure because it's staying on your computer. So I highly recommend looking at transcription of meetings if you need to do that. If you're a podcaster and you want to put closed captioning, you want the closed caption to be accurate, that's another tool I think that can be real beneficial for AI, and it is pretty marvelous what it does. So there, no more doom and gloom from me, sorry.
Another related point that I'll make to that, Dave, is making sure that you read the fine print, right? Whenever we're signing up for something new, it's so easy to just be like, yep, agree to terms and conditions. Yep, let me get my account set up. And really, I thought of it because of Dave's point, like, you need to know those tools that you're using. Can they just take your information and share it with the world and use it in someone else's content that they're trying to generate for themselves? And so taking the time to really read through what can these services do with the information you're feeding it is really important. I am not a legal expert.
No, but that is a really good point. And I think one that we all kind of shirk when we're busy. Scroll, except, wait, what?
Awesome. Thank you, David, too, for that link. That is also in the list that will be sent out after the call. And actually, I did turn on the AI companion for this call. So if you, in your Zoom window, go down to the AI companion, I didn't want to distract while we were responding to the questions, but if you click that, you can throw a few different prompts in there. You can ask, if you come onto the call late.
Try to see if I could get her a plate.
Yeah.
Are you the quality of
I think
maybe Nancy, you're breaking up a lot. It's hard to hear you.
I wonder if she accidentally unmuted herself.
Okay, Nancy, I muted you, but if you meant to unmute, then go ahead and unmute again and ask your question. Okay. So anyway, I turned on the AI companion, so you can click that and you can ask, if you come into a meeting late, you can ask, oh, did I, was my name mentioned? What did I miss? Catch me up. And you can see what I did, like summarize the meeting, and I said, oh, I wonder if it caught what David mentioned as the final tool. So I was like, oh, what's that tool David just mentioned? And then it just gave me an overview of what the tool is and how he described it. So, yeah, it's a pretty, this is actually the first time I've ever used it because it's the first time I've ever used it. So always learning, always trying out some of these new tools. So one of the other questions that was asked in the beginning, so generating consistent graphics in AI, David, I'm going to call you out just because I know you have a couple of tools that you have recommended for graphics creation, and I don't know, and Brandie, you actually mentioned this as well, how it's still kind of learning graphics. So I don't know if the two of you have anything, and Kristi, if you have anything, feel free to throw it in.
Well, there's two tools that I've used to create graphic, and Kristi, I know that, and other marketing folks are like, yee, no, it's an artist world. I do it just for PowerPoint presentations. As a matter of fact, everything you saw in the slides that I had was generated using a couple of different ones. They're in the list that you're going to distribute, Amanda. They're a ton of fun to play with from a concept idea perspective. And there are two of them that I've linked in there that you don't have to identify yourself and you don't have to sign up, and there's no limit on generation. So Deep Dream, I think Deep Dream Generator was one that I used most for those slides. So, but I just like those because I really do like to live with the letter of the law when it comes to graphics that I find on the internet and not use somebody else's stuff. I'd like to respect people's, IP. At the same time, I need something to stick along with the words. So that's what I played around with. Obviously, I'm not making any business use of it, but it is an awful lot of fun to spice up my presentations.
Yeah, I use it a lot for graphics also. So Canva and Adobe Express are the ones we tend to use for our content provision. And I think it does a pretty good job when you, the search function. I have tried the AI where you type in a few words and it makes an image for you. And those were just weird. I didn't end up using them. I also used it as a thought prompt when I was creating my logo in Canva. What industry are you in? What are your brand colors? And do you want it stacked or, it went through a couple, 3, 5 questions, and then it spat out a few things that were pretty close. I did end up zhuzhing it up a little bit for myself, but it saved me hours definitely doing that. So I found that was very useful. And I'm an amateur shutterbug and I use Adobe Lightroom, and they have an AI like fix me button that it saves a lot of time. I still end up playing with them after the fact, but it can look and just say, okay, the exposure could be tweaked this way, it could be warmed or cooled, and just like an initial set of changes, and then you can make it your own from there. So I find all of those tools are like really fun to play with at home. And then of course, as I said, for our business, AI is practically my partner when it comes to our cybersecurity practice.
Awesome. Thank you. So attendees, any other questions before we wrap up? We have about 9 minutes left. If you have anything else you might be wondering about jumping in to start using AI, you can either put it in the chat. Oh, Melanie, go ahead.
So mine's not really a question. So I'm a graphic designer who specializes in branding, and my typical, what you'd expect me to say here is, boy, this is taking away my business, blah, blah, blah. And I don't have that opinion, because the people who would use AI are not going to pay me what I'm worth anyways. They're not my clients. But what I think that needs to be maybe discussed is, if you are a business owner using ChatGPT or any kind of AI in what you create, I think that you need to have a conversation with yourself, or if you have a team, about what your ethics are and what your stance is going to be on it and how you're going to use it in your business. Because as a designer, I'm not going to use it to create designs for my clients, because that goes against the whole purpose of why I'm here and what I do. So I use it sometimes for some marketing copy, but I would never use it for content I create for a client whether graphics or text. I have that kind of rule. So I feel like that's something that should be discussed, is if you're going to be a business owner who uses it, what is your ethical line? What is your rules? I think you have to come up with what you want your, lines to be. And I that's a conversation I think that should be had.
I think that's a great point, and something I attended a meeting of marketing minds about a month or so ago, and it was all focused on AI and how are people using it and what are the concerns and what are the dangers and the pitfalls and the benefits, and kind of just exploring all different angles of it. And after that, it really did get me thinking, because I use that tool Cast Magic, which, if anyone didn't hear, Amanda's going to be sending out a document that's got all these tools that we're talking about. So all the links are going to be there for you. But when I use Cast Magic, I create a 1 to 2 minute video on a specific marketing topic. I post it on LinkedIn. Then I take that video, feed it into Cast Magic. I have it create sometimes an email. I'll have it create standalone LinkedIn posts. I'll have it create a blog for me, a YouTube title, YouTube description, all of these things. And one thing I decided is that when I use the blog on my website, I have a line at the bottom that says, this blog was written using this tool based on this video. And then I just include the video that I did, because it is still all my information. But to Melanie's point, like I feel like I need to be transparent about that and let people know, like, this is my process, and this is how I'm using it. And from a marketing standpoint, I really agree with that it should be made very upfront. If you're using tools to create content for you, I think it should be added as a disclaimer.
I just I would hate to be somebody who paid a writer or a designer to create something for me and then find out that they did it that way. And I think that's where my line is, I think.
Yes, that makes that clarifying point of, yes, I use AI to streamline process within my business, but I don't get paid for products that are generated by AI.
Right.
I think that's a huge differentiating ethical factor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in our business too. So clients entrust their data and their networks to us. They know that we use tools for the monitoring, but they absolutely have an expectation that somebody's watching that monitoring, which we are. And so again, it's a tool, it's not replacing me. And similarly, we do actually have a service that we work with that is even more versed in the attack landscape than we are, because it changes, the attackers are very creative and every day it's something new is coming out. So these folks are specifically focused on that and only that. And my clients know that as well. So you're getting me plus these other experts. And then that, to me, that only shows the breadth of the offering, but I wouldn't want my clients to not be completely aware of what we're doing with their systems and how we're monitoring them. So like everything in business, I think transparency is key, and certainly with AI. And also a grain of salt, because two of the major incidents that happened recently were the AI tools put in place to protect actually were compromised. So we have to remain vigilant and not just turn the whole keys over to HAL 9000.
Crazy. Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for attending today. Thank you to our panel. Thank you, Brandie, David, and Kristi. In the message or in the email we'll be sending out, we will also include some contact information for our wonderful panel in case you'd like to get in touch with them. And then if you have any further questions, maybe feel free to shoot those over. But otherwise, thank you all so much for your time. This recording will be available on our YouTube channel for RWN as well, so that you can watch it back later if you would like. So thank you all again so much and have a great rest of your day.